sort of go through in greater detail, if you like, and give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have as well.
Fantastic.
Cool.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to hand it over to the lovely Dan and Steve. Obviously, they're going to give me the polite nods, and I will hopefully run this as smoothly as possible for them.
Let's go for it. Excellent. So yeah, boat building level 3 standard. So who are we? So I'll hand you over to Steve just so he can introduce himself to you guys. Hopefully you can hear him from that distance.
Hello there. Yeah, well, it's on the board what I am and how long I've been here. It doesn't say how old I am, so that's good. Yeah, I've been at the college for a long time. Started off mainly doing furniture making, and then along came boat building opportunity it must be about 12 years ago now, and been delivering it since then. Just mainly, yeah, to Sunseeker, and we did have at one point a few years back we did offer a full-time course as well, but it's mainly apprentices now. Well, only apprentices at this point. Okay, then.
My name's Dan Lovett. So I've been here at the college for nearly 5 years now. Started by delivering composites, and then I've gone into delivering elements of engineering and automotive as well. My background, obviously, I started at Sunseeker as an apprentice there, so in composites in boat building, and then I went through and did my HNC there. We did material testing, and then I've come into the college to deliver the apprenticeship now. I'm also a teaching and learning coach here at the college as well, so giving support to other lecturers in training and other things like that. Next slide, please. So at level 2, these are, you can see on the screen there what the level 2 consists of. So this year it's going to be, we're going to bring wood and composites together rather than it being completely separate bodies, because we felt that both the hand skills from both areas sort of like come together really, so they both complement each other. So in the initial stages of level 2, it's introducing the apprentices to the marine industry. That the summative assessment for that is an online test. It's a multiple choice test still. Then we go into principles of boat building technology. So that's looking at different materials. So whether that's wood, composite, we look at the different construction methods, that kind of thing. And that, again, that's a multiple choice online test. Now, the new unit for this year, when we go into the level 3 standards, is that they have to do a business improvement techniques unit. So that looks at things like Six Sigma. We look at 5S processes, Kaizen, all of those kind of methodology to help your apprentices sort of come into the workplace and already be aware of what those methods are, what those techniques are, so that they can continue those for you in the workplace. Unit 206. Yeah, go for it, Steve.
Yeah. Hi there. Yeah, Unit 206 is scribing and spiling and installation, fitting out boats. Well, Dan's done that unit. You've done that one as well.
Yeah.
So what I'm basically dropping is another unit, but the stuff that was in the other unit, I should be doing more as I'll be keeping a lot of it, but doing it more not as assessment, but as actual sort of extension tasks and training really. So there would be all the normal stuff that we do about woodworking, joints particular to boat building. A lot of it's about just getting your measuring and marking skills up together, because I think that's really important in any student, basically getting that understanding drawings, measuring and marking, and then the foundation in the woodworking skills.
Yeah, excellent. And then we move on to the composite specific unit there in 207. Both 206 and 207 have written tests, end tests in those ones, and then the practical assignments as well. The 207, it's mainly looking at wet lay sort of techniques in there, but we start to introduce some of the resin infusion techniques as well at level 2. Okay. Next slide for us, please, Mandy. So at level 3, so we're taking it up a notch. So once they've passed through that gateway into level 3, so I believe Mandy will correct me with this, I'm sure, at level, they have to make sure that they've got their English, maths, all those things together to get through that gateway. they've met all the criteria for level 2 to pass through on to level 3. Again, you can see we look at effective working in the marine industry this time at 301, and that's another online test. We look again at principles of boat construction. So every time we're adding that little bit more of information, so it carries them on through their the standard on their apprenticeship. Would you like to talk about 304?
304, construction and repair of hulls and boat structure. Yeah, again, there's a written test, short answer. In the practical, we're starting doing more in-depth looking at lofting. So they do a lofting of a stem of a boat, and then from their lofting, they then they take the measurements off the drawing, and they do a stem block where they're doing a rabbet for fitting the planking into, and then from the lofting, they make a mould, and they set up the mould with other moulds on a sort of mock-up of a boat. Then they do what we call horning in, which is basically getting it in the right position, level-wise and centre-wise and measurement-wise, with the rest of the moulds that are lined up on the rig. Then we've got deck beam shaping. That's basically simulating a deck beam in a boat, and there's quite a complicated dovetail joint with lots of angles and that, and we teach them how to do that, and they hopefully achieve that with minimum amount of gaps.
Excellent. And then we go into the composite unit in 307, and this one we're looking at obviously vacuum assisted resin transfer molding. We look at pre-preg as well, and possibly sprint as well, depending on what direction you guys want to steer that. So we've got options there. That's still very much open to how we want to steer that one. One of the main reasons we've decided to bring the wood and composite together this year is part of the standard is that they have to show that they can be competent in using sort of a multitude of materials. So it made sense to us to bring the two together. Obviously, some of you guys that are in the meeting now are a lot more composite based, but as Steve sort of said there, a lot of these hand skills are transferable, and we want to sort of like show them all of the elements so that they can bring it together and be sort of I suppose, more skillful apprentice for you so that they can transfer those skills. Next slide.
Bear with me. Love a good morning technical problem there. There we go. Hopefully it won't drop too far down for you.
That's cool. So part of the new standards is this EPA, okay, so the Endpoint Assessment. So you could see there on those previous slides, at the end of each outcome, we've got either a written test, online multiple choice test, and there's practical tests that go along with those as well, practical assessments. This time around, rather than there being an MVQ, there's going to be a company logbook, which is very much for you guys that have sort of been through the apprenticeship process before. It's like the job cards that they have. So they'll keep almost like a day-to-day log of any work that they're taking out, take pictures of that, and any relevant documents that go along with those processes. That then leads them to the Viva presentation, where they'll almost present that logbook to a board of people. Last I heard, it was either going to be Imarest or British Marine who were going to be part of that process. And there's also talk of a practical assessment now. Previously, it was only going to be a logbook and the Viva presentation, but they actually want to do a practical assessment, which makes a lot of sense to sort of make sure that people are achieving, that should be achieving at level 3. Now, all of this is subject to change at any point because it's not the boat building standard still in development currently. Go for it, Mandy. We'll just give you a little bit of background of the college as well, so what you can expect from us. So there's student support on both sites, so at North Road and the Fulcrum. They can access all the resources online. We're using Teams now as well, so if we do need to work remotely, it's very easy for us to do that. Obviously, with the practical side of things, might be a little bit more difficult, but what we're doing, we're slowly videoing different elements of practical assessment so that they can sort of go back and look at some of the elements that create that final assessment and then practice it either in the workplace, maybe. Some of it they might be able to do at home, but we're hoping the majority of the time, as we go into lockdown too, that colleges and schools are going to remain open, so that shouldn't be an issue. Student life, they can look at getting financial support. We've got wellbeing teams here, so they're looked after well here. We've also got the Learning Resource Centre, so any extra information that they want to get hold of, very attainable. They can go online, they can download DVDs, they can get books, all sort of things. Go for it, Mandy.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Dan and Steve, for just kind of giving us that brief overview of what our boat building looks like. Obviously, it's combined wood and composites. If you do have any questions about those, because I'm sure you're going to, you're more than welcome to pop them in the chat box. If not, I'm just going to open up to the shop floor in a moment, and we can obviously have a discussion between ourselves, hopefully in an orderly manner and on a Wednesday morning. So in terms of recruitment, now we've heard from Dan and Steve what's going to happen and what's going to take place, but how do we get these apprentices for you? So this is where we come in. Obviously, I'm your dedicated account manager for this area. Dan and Steve will be supporting me along the way, as well as my colleagues, Peter Leach. Now he heads up obviously the marine and boat building as well. In terms of recruitment, now I will obviously explain tomorrow, we are running another event at 8 AM to talk about the incentives. So if you do want to jump on that and you're a little bit late to the Eventbrite page, I can send you a link for tomorrow morning, and that's at 8 AM to go through the government incentives. But in terms of recruitment, this is what we're here for. So it'll be my job really to pre-screen and vet all your candidates for this particular vacancy. If you have your own, obviously staff, and you would like obviously to bolt that training on and you want to upskill your existing employees, then again, we can look at that one and we can look at what they're doing in the workplace and how we can skill them up to fit into this standard. So we are running a small class, hopefully starting in January. The date is to be confirmed at the moment. We are looking at the first week in January, but again, we may be pushed back to the middle of January at the moment, but we will be able to let you know that once we've planned it. In terms of recruitment itself, we will be able to obviously do the initial job advert for you. We can vet that job advert for you. We can leave it open for a couple of weeks. What we're doing in terms of recruitment to combat obviously COVID-19, which has been really successful for us in the base team, is we've been delivering a number of these sessions. So we'll start with a webinar or a presentation similar to this morning. We will then offer telephone and video interviews, which have been going really, really well, followed by a number of tests. So depending on what you're looking for and how you'd like to vet your candidates, we do have a number of tests that we have been sharing with these. We obviously put the benefit into obviously the guys that are going to be doing the test with calculators they can use at home still, and we will get those in, and again we will give you a set of scores as well as our personal feedback and their CV and a bit about their history and what they've done. We'll also vet them in terms of their GCSE level. So Dan did say, and Steve, there is going to be an entry level to this particular apprenticeship, and we'll be able to give you that fact sheet afterwards, but on the initial fact sheet it is there what the grades are. Now that is obviously in terms of recruitment. Most people know what we do in the base team, but we're happy to take any questions, or afterwards if you want to obviously pop us in a call or an email, we can obviously pick it up that way. Now, Matt definitely wanted me to say this, so I'm going to say it again. I'm just going to repeat it. Matt Butcher, our commercial director, is running another webinar tomorrow morning at 8 AM just to go through the incentives, what are out there, what does it mean, how you can get hold of those, what you're eligible for. Okay, and this does affect any new starts coming into the business until the end of January 2021. If it is going to be extended, we will be the first to know, and we will let you know as well. So again, if you can't join that, please let me know. The email's down the bottom. We will send you a link, okay, because the Eventbrite page is closed. Okay, so I'm just going to exit out of that one because that concludes obviously our presentation today. What I'm going to do is open it up obviously to questions, because I know we've got a couple questions coming in. All right, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, so I do apologize. Okie dokie. So I'm just going to obviously give the question out there, and hopefully Dan and Steve, you'll be able to help me out on here. So at the morning, obviously, we've just welcomed Alan from the British Marine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute everyone so we can have a little chat. So I hope that's okay with everyone. So if you've muted yourself, just kindly unmute yourselves. If not, I will take control. Morning, Neil.
Morning, you okay?
Not too bad, yourself?
Yeah, well, thanks. Good.
Good. Morning, Dan.
Morning, how are you?
I'm not too bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah. And Michelle, I've got you unmuted as well. Morning, Michelle.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. There is a few more people in here that are leaving their cameras and obviously their voice off. That's absolutely fine. But what I'll do is I'll open up to the floor about those people have unmuted. Does anyone have any questions that we can fire at the lovely Dan and Steve while we have them this morning?
Be gentle.
I don't have a question as such, but just more of I'm pleased that how composites are getting linked to the carpentry quite a bit, because I've had feedback from our own skilled carpenters who can join Sunseeker. They can often be working in a first stage part of our build and say that for the first couple of months they've not even touched a piece of wood because it's working with GRP material. So there's lots of sort of we've been going through an exercise of trying to sort of grade our skill levels within our trades, and it's interesting of how much GRP work there is early, even for a carpenter. So this almost looks slightly more of a step towards getting your composite staff being able to do some basic carpentry stuff as well, which would really be helpful, I think, in the early part of the build at least. So it's interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that information, Neil.
Yeah, I think I'd, oh, sorry, Karen.
Thank you. Can I just ask the question around the grades, please? Are you able to tell me what the grades are? I'm just interested in any of our current apprentices that may want to upskill to the level 3. And obviously some of them don't have the required grades, and how we could get around that. So are you able to tell me what the grades are, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. So Boatbuilding Level 3, the actual grading for that is a lot higher than obviously what we're used to. So it's actually grade 4, so D's and functional skills level 2. However, as is a 2-3 combination, we'll be looking obviously to bring that grade a bit lower, possibly, and then obviously bolt on that possible functional skills. Or again, if you've got a cohort, anyone that does have a few members of staff that want to be upskilled, we can then look at that on obviously a different level in terms of how many people are there. Do these people need to be upskilled in maths and English first? And that's something that we can look as a college, and then we can obviously bolt that training on in January. But we're not just looking at a January start. This is why we're doing this today. We're trying to be open and flexible as we can to our employers and the surrounding businesses. So we're here to cater for you guys as well as ourselves at the end of the day. So if something doesn't necessarily work for you but works for us, then we can talk about it, and vice versa. We can do that either way. So if you guys said, oh, actually I couldn't really take anyone in January, I might be able to do it in April, that's something as a college that we're willing to look at.
Okay, right.
Dan, I believe Dan from the RNLI had a question.
Yeah, hiya. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for running through the presentation. It's really good. Like Neil said, I'm glad to see that we're sort of integrating a lot of the woodworking stuff in with the composites. Obviously, we do mainly in composite boat building, but seeing that hand skill you get from working with wood is really important, and we've been sending our apprentices on a specific woodworking course that we paid for, so to have that integrated into qualification would be really good. I suppose the question I've got is there a gateway and a pathway for apprentices that are already on the NVQ, completed the NVQ level 2, to go straight into the level 3 section of the framework? Sorry, the standards.
No. Do apologise. I will hand it over to Dan and Steve. I know this is something they're looking at the moment because it's not quite signed off yet, which we will be able to get that one done by January. They will be looking into how we RPL, so recognise prior learning. So I know those guys will be looking at that. So Dan, Steve, I'm not sure if you've got any more development on the RPL.
I mean, I think we've got Blue from British Marine here. He might correct me on what I'm about to say, so we'll see. But from what I sort of understand from it, the Beast is that if they do the Unit 203, a business unit, they should then be able to go through the gateway into the standard at level 3. I believe that's what we're doing for some of our level 2s currently as well. I believe. But
Alan.
we'll look into it and we'll make it sure. All right.
Cool.
And how long then would that course be just to do the level 3? So if they've already completed level 2?
It's supposed to be a 2-year, the level 3, isn't
I think.
it?
There you go, Steve.
See?
Yeah. No, from what I understand, the level 3 is 2 years.
Yeah.
Again, I might stand to be corrected, but
2 years.
that is the case.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's Blue Davies from British Marine. If I may pitch in.
Absolutely.
Mandy, firstly, thank you for the invite you sent me early this morning. That's very much appreciated. Yes, if I could just give you a bit of an update, because we are quite familiar with the boat building apprenticeship standard, because it's one of the ones that we've developed with our members at British Marine. And my colleague Ulrika, who some of you guys may well know, facilitates all the other apprenticeship development that we do. And she's also responsible for a lot of the EPA work that we do. So it is us who are responsible for EPA, for the boat building, along with the marine engineering and marine electrical, and that comes online hopefully early next year. Just in the chat there, I've left a link to the standard on the IFATE website that also has the EPA details on it as well. So if you get the opportunity, have a look through that just to get a feel for the kind of the finer detail of what the course is, what the apprenticeship is about, and what the EPA requirements are about. The other thing that's currently happening is the review of the boat building standard, which is being done through the engineering and manufacturing review, which is currently ongoing. So we will be looking at that in the next month or so. So when that happens, the content may well change somewhat. There isn't actually at the moment a practical assessment for the boat building for the EPA, but I know it has been talked about and considered. Whether that changes through this review, we will have to see. We've got a meeting hopefully with the IFATE at the end of February, which a lot of these things we can discuss with them and make the changes appropriately to the EPA and anything to do with the apprenticeship standard. The other thing I'll pop in the chat box there, which will be useful further down the line, is our dedicated email for EPAO and all the stuff that we do around that. So once you start getting learners on board, we've got a system called ACE360, which again you may well be familiar with your other apprenticeship EPA organisations, which we add all the learners onto, and then that takes them through the whole process from the start of the programme all the way to the end and certification. So kind of that's where we are at the moment. I'll pop that email in there. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer. Apologies for not being on screen. I've just come back from running, so I'm looking a bit of a mess at the moment. But thank you for allowing me to comment, Mandy.
No, thank you very much for jumping in. It's most valuable, obviously, exploring other people's, obviously, knowledge within this. And we obviously do want to get this right. We do want to obviously make sure this is a really good programme. And both Dan, Steve and I are really enthused and passionate about it. So we really want to obviously kickstart this as well as possible. So any help along the way will be muchly appreciated. I know probably after this, Dan and Steve will be quickly on your case, Alan. So that will be great.
Yeah,
So
happy to do that. Please drop us an email. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So that kind of concludes us today, unless anyone's got any questions they want to ask us again before we go. But before I will let that obviously happen, we will put a fact sheet together. So everything that we've spoken about today, questions that have been asked, questions that we think you're going to be asking, we have actually designed a fact sheet. So we will send that one out today for you all. And then if you've got any questions from that, or you'd love to recruit some boat building apprentices in the foreseeable future, whether that's now or next year, please do contact us. That's what we're here for, and we'll be delighted obviously to help and support you along the way.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
No worries. No worries. Well, guys and girls, have a wonderful day. It's a pleasure seeing a lot of your faces and hearing from you, and hopefully we'll hear and speak to you soon. Okay. So see you later, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
See ya.